G'day, parceros. I'm here with Senor John Duque. You may recognize him from previous videos on this channel. Today we're going to be talking Medellin, the real estate market, the Airbnb market. John and his company has taken over administration of a bunch of the investment properties you've seen on this channel. So stay tuned. This is going to be a very insightful conversation. Let's rock. Let's do it. So where to begin? I mean, you started working real estate and property management in 2007 with Rich. What have you seen? It's been what, 15, 16 years since then?
15, 16 years, and you could just see the difference here in Provenza. Our first office was right here on 34th.
Yep. First American Realty
office, yeah.
Yep.
At that time, it was just houses and maybe one or two businesses.
Parque Gieres was the center
of action, but Provenza was really very calm at the time. It was still very residential.
There was 2 hostels. Airbnb didn't exist.
Didn't exist. And in like now, if you come to Provenza on a weekday, there's nowhere to park. There's people walking everywhere. You hear all types of language. Back in those days, there was 1 or 2 businesses, and it would only be kind of crowded on a weekend. Now you come on a Tuesday, a Wednesday, and it's crowded with people. So that's just a small indicator of how much in 15 years possibly this whole the influence of foreigners, of tourism has really impacted Medellin.
Yeah. So 2010, I got here on my motorbike and flip-flops, walked around Parque Gieres. I'm like, okay, I see where this is going.
Yes.
I'm gonna go to Bogota, roll the dice, right? A bit more unpredictable lifestyle out there. Meanwhile, Rich and John are working Medellin. Another partner, Joe, comes in, connects a vacation rental operation that Andrew is running, and pieces together the first tips and preps.
When Joe comes into the picture with Andrew, at that time a very interesting thing happened, which was the hotels did a lobby to stop us from renting in residential buildings doing short term. And Airbnb wasn't even a big thing at the time. So Joe Greco had a great idea of let's buy a building, or let's buy a small property, like we see all these small types of properties like right here. And now they're gonna do right there minimum. They're gonna do most likely their apartments for Airbnb right there.
Yep.
That's most probably gonna happen.
So these were called preps, and they were basically crowd-funded building renovations, and the investors would own a piece of the LLC or the SAS here in Colombia, and own the entire project, from the purchasing of the real estate to the renovation, the furnishing, and the administration. That was the prep model, and that was a very successful model that worked really well in Medellin when it was obviously a very exciting and growing point. That's when I joined my brokerage in Bogota to the team here. And over the next years, leading up to 2020, we had about 20 of these preps.
Up to 20, that's correct.
About to 20. And so during the pandemic, when the ego and contractual battles came to a screeching halt at lifeafar, and the management, I would say, mismanaged the exciting growth potential we had, the investors were left with 20 well, I mean, hundreds of investors were left with 20 different cash flowing properties. Yes. So since then, there's been a bit of a shuffling of ownership. The investors own their properties, and I guess you're now managing about 4 to 5 of those buildings at the moment?
Yes, at the moment we're managing those buildings. And even despite pandemic, even despite there was the protest, and then there was the elections, now we're seeing a big boom in the market of rentals, and these properties are keeping 90% occupancy, which is great numbers. And just right now, you always have these investors coming in trying to replicate that model that lifeafar helped create.
So in the lifeafar time, you know, lifeafar really had control over everything.
Everything, the accounting, the property management, the administration. It was a full control. A lot of the investors never even knew what was happening with their properties, what their income really was.
I mean, yeah, I remember, you know, we were always trying to evolve the reporting so that we could have more transparency about what was happening. But I guess in this, you know, this mixture of different property management, you've been on the front lines, and that's why I wanted to kind of, you know, talk and walk with you to walk through this. What are you seeing on the front lines? Because, you know, we've all been doing different roles in the operation, but you've been speaking to guests, you've been managing reservations, calendars, occupancies, rental rates,
and talking to guests every time they come in. The market is still very strong. It's still very positive. Most of the investors are absolutely happy now that they have more control over their property, that it's more transparent. They feel more comfortable with their investment. So that's a very positive thing for them. The numbers keep on getting better every day, every month. And now we have a large amount of investors that want to replicate that model. But right now it's so hard to find properties at a good, reasonable price to keep on doing investments. So
right,
that's the struggle right now. Finding these small little properties that we could turn into a good Airbnb property.
I mean, I think we're seeing a lot of properties that were usually being sold by square meter in pesos are now being sold by ROI in the cap rate, because properties are now high ROI businesses.
It's such a good deal. Even Colombians, because back 10 years ago, the only ones that were doing this type of model were foreigners, foreign investment. You have allowed Colombians coming into this mix and seeing this model, and they're like, why don't I get into this? Why don't I buy this property, remodel it, and start doing Airbnb also? So
yeah, I have seen that. The local market is diving headfirst into Airbnb, whether it's our Airbnb arbitrage or which is like renting the apartment and sub-renting it out on Airbnb, or yeah, these full-on renovations. So what were some of the big takeaways, you know, like you've from your perspective in this whole lifeafar, you know, post lifeafar era? What lessons do you have for investors in terms of like the property management piece? Because for me, that was a big one. Like the difference between a nightmare investment and a high ROI positive net income investment is the property management piece.
Yes.
You can get everything right, but if it's not being managed well, your ROIs are going to suffer. So what did you see on your end? And
this is Casa El Reloj. This is one of the projects on Life Apartment. Beautiful. Yep. Shown by one investor. He's very happy with his investment. I mean, the positive thing is what's worth the most important thing is that the investors have their property. That nobody could take that property from them. These properties are in great locations. The apartments were very nicely decorated and furnished and remodeled by lifeafar. They did a great job on that. The next step was having a hardworking, good, honest property manager that's going to help you get that return of investment that lifeafar obviously promised. And it's doable. It's absolutely doable. And you need somebody that you could count on. Great communication, hard work, and obviously honesty. Honesty is probably one of the key points, and you want to have somebody that's honest to help you with that process, because it's very easy, and you hear a lot of horror stories of this guy was helping me rent my apartment and then he didn't pay me for this rent, and you'll find stories like that. But if you deal with a company that's had a good history, that's been here for a couple of years, you're gonna be all right.
History and track record.
Yes, that's very important.
So, like, you know, the word on the street, there isn't like a property management brand that's absolutely loved by everyone. Property management brands in Colombia, Medellin have gotten a lot of heat. Yes. Why is that? Why is it so hard to have a great level of consistent quality service? And I ask this because, you know, a lot of Airbnb arbitrage guys I've spoken to who think they can come in and automate their property management with, you know, a bunch of tech. they think it's going to be easy to manage a property here in Colombia. Why is it so hard?
Well, it's hard when you have the expectations of foreigners, and then you gotta, in Colombia, work with Colombian work ethic, with plumbers, with staff, with a lot of things. At times it could be an owner, at times it could be properties that are very old and have a lot of wear and tear. So you could have, out of 100 clients, 99, 98 are gonna be very happy and have a good experience, but then you're gonna have that one person, and it could not be their fault. It could be they just had a bad travel and they arrived, the apartment's not ready for a certain reason. Then the jacuzzi for some reason is not working due to the previous tenant broke it. So it's a snowball effect, and they could have a bad experience, and then they could just go on the internet and say, I had a terrible experience with this company, do not rent with them. And that could also not be fully our fault, but we always try to do our best, and we try to either compensate them, give them a discount, run and try to solve the problem as soon as possible. But with the difficulties of Colombian labor, of a part not being in stock, it could delay stuff. And then you just have that person that's just not happy, that just doesn't like what people are doing, and are happy going on the internet and flaming everybody. So you have a little bit of everything.
You know, property management is a 24/7 job. It's one of the lower margins, you know, in the real estate investment play. It's you get lower margins. You're talking 15-20%. A lot of resources. 24/7. You've got to navigate Colombian
people from all over the
utilities
world.
and services. You're also
Standards.
dependent on electricity, you know, Wi-Fi, water of the local utility providers. So why are you doing this? why have you you know, walked this path?
I guess I love it, honestly. It's the only conclusion that I've come to is I love it. I love working with foreigners. It's great meeting people. It's help servicing and helping them have a great time in my city, enjoying my culture. It's something that you come to love. It's very demanding. It's very time consuming. But it's the path that my destiny, my Lord, has brought me to. So that's where we're at right now.
How many guests have you hooked up with apartments in Medellin at this point?
That's a hard number to come by right now. I mean,
probably,
thousands. Thousands, where hundreds of them have become close friends of mine.
Yeah. And now we're standing outside Buskers de Provenza, which was one of the preps.
This is one of the first preps. This one is close to 10 years now. This is 4 units.
Next to the Casa Kiwi. So I actually stayed here with my motorbike. It was really this and the Black Sheep, I think, was the other hostel.
In Patio Bonito. But Kiwi was the first one.
Yeah. So then I actually saw this, and I remember Joe pointed this one out, and I think they got it for like 600 million pesos.
It was very inexpensive.
They got an incredible deal on it.
There was 2 houses, I think.
There wasn't, I guess it was like there wasn't an Airbnb awareness, right? Like only some people really knew about short-term rentals as being a viable option to generate an income.
We had already done Poblado Suites, then we did Oasis, and then this was the 3rd project.
Yeah.
And from the 2 projects previous, we learned our mistakes, and this one was like really took a higher standard. This was Provenza. This was close to the really good restaurants, closer to Lleras. This one had better jacuzzis. So this one we stepped up our level.
So location, amenities is really when the focus.
And we had the Kiwi. At the time, the Kiwi hostel was only like a 2-level house at the time, remember?
Yeah.
Now look how tall it is.
Yeah. They've added on. So can we take a look inside one of these? Or?
I don't know if one of these tenants.
What are they renting out for at the moment?
This is the Buskers 103. It goes for an average of $200 a night. 3-bedroom, big jacuzzi for like 6 people. All bedrooms have AC. In very few, we're gonna do a little bit of remodeling to the whole building. We're gonna fix roofs. We're gonna fix ACs. We're gonna have new TVs that are all gonna be smart, latest TVs. We're changing some of the laundry machines. We're changing some of the heaters because it's coming upon 10 years now. So it's had a lot of wear and tear.
Right.
But it's also been the home to many people. I have I say more than half of my tenants are repeat clients. Right now I have 2 repeat clients right here that have been coming for the last 10 years with us. So this becomes their home actually. And they come in and they're like, John, this is great. The guy that just came in, he said, John, I appreciate it. You fixed the blower on the jacuzzi. Last time he was here, the blower had an issue. Done. The jacuzzi is working 100%. He's absolutely happy.
Okay. So $200 to what per night?
200.
Just overall.
And this one is a 1-bedroom right here. It's Buskers 101. 1-bedroom with jacuzzi. That one goes for $70 a night.
Okay.
Here on the second floor, we have Buskers 201, a 2-bedroom with jacuzzi. That one goes for $140, $160 a night. Okay. Then we have Buskers 301. It's a 2-level, 1-bedroom apartment.
Okay.
And that one goes for an average of $70, $60 a night also.
Okay.
Great apartment.
Okay, so what would you say to someone who, you know, is considering doing a similar model where you're crowdfunding investors? From what we've learned of, you know, all these different structures, right? It sounds like, you know, you're favoring creating a SaaS which has a legal representative and then you're having separate accounting for that SaaS and a separate property manager. Is that the model that you're kind of?
I think it's the best. If I was an investor, that would be the model I would want, because then you have the accounting, auditing, the property manager, making sure there's always transparency, there's always honesty, and that way the investor's always at calm and at ease, knowing that his investment is in good hands, and there's always somebody cross-referencing and making sure that they're doing their job.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's the best model for me, I would think, being myself an investor, knowing what's been going on, the history of the rental market in Medellin, of property managers, of hearing the stories from owners, from investors, from competition, from myself. That would be the way to go. And I think it's a very positive, like I said, just even Colombians have caught on to this and want to replicate these type of business models.
Yeah. Are we going to get oversaturated with Airbnbs anytime soon?
Well, we've had record numbers of tourists in Medellin.
Right.
Medellin has surpassed Cartagena as the second biggest tourist destination.
Incredible.
Bogota beats us because it's the airport. Just because of the people have to stop at the airport, that's why they're beating us out.
Yeah.
Provenza is the, what is it, 3rd coolest neighborhood in the world right now?
It's the #1 mentioned barrio in reggaeton songs, I'm sure.
We have the Rebelde concert coming up in November. Okay. 3 concerts.
Yeah.
So when you have these big artists,
yeah,
they're doing 2 or 3 concerts in Medellin itself. That's kind of,
there's room to grow.
There's a lot of room to grow. So we see once in a while a house has been purchased, an old house, and they're replicating this model. Yeah. And these properties are all being rented, and occupancy, we keep our occupancy at 90% and more. Yeah. So we're very positive.
Yeah, and you're managing over 100 properties.
And we're managing over 100 properties, and all these properties all keep, I have to turn people away. Yeah. In high season, there's no way that demand could cover. People are like, John, there's no hotels, there's no nothing. So at times it could be very difficult for people to come in and find something where to stay. With that said, obviously, doing this type of business, it's definitely the way I would go. Buying a property, furnishing it, and putting it on Airbnb or whatever other platforms you want to put it on, and renting it. It's definitely a good way to go.
And then it comes down to your, I guess, management strategy, whether you're going for those hyper short-term rentals, or you're going for more of a mid-term. The advantage is that if those markets were to become oversaturated, you could always put it on the long-term rental market. And so you've got a lot of steps to go there. There is actually a building like this in El Poblado for sale, one of the preps that was crowdfunded. It's cash flowing. It's generating approximately 14 to 16% net ROI as well. I hope to be able to show that on the channel, so click subscribe. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch with John, there's a link, there's an email that you can send me an email. I'll make the intro and get you connected. If you want to get hooked up with a property or a place to invest, send me an email below and I'll connect you through. Until then, I want to thank you for the tour, for the insights.
It's always a pleasure.
I want to thank you for the hard work you've done, like the hardest work in the business, I think, managing the properties. So.
Try to do my best, try to better myself every day. So we're gonna keep on working hard for any investors or any of guests that come and stay with us. You could be reassured that we'll do our best to make sure that you have the best experience in Medellin.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. This whole week, I'm kind of summing up, wrapping up some loose ends and overviewing what's going on in the Medellin real estate market. I'll see you guys in the next one.